Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. As we normally do, we will sign in on YouTube so that I know that you're here, and I would like you to sign in with your cell phone. Just turn down the volume here just a little bit. Hopefully everybody's trying to stay a little cool. It's 85 degrees in my side room here. I have a fan going, trying to stay as cool as possible. Hopefully there won't be any glitches tonight. I know last week there was some lagging of videos, so I apologize. It's tough when you have multiple people online, and I don't think the cable system that I have is giving me what I'm purchasing, so it's hard to stream some of these videos. So we're gonna finish up the topic of driving in bad weather tonight, and we're gonna hopefully get to insurance and talk a little bit about what you should know about car crashes and reporting information to your insurance company, to the state, because they do need to know after you've been involved in a crash that, you know, someone hit you, you hit somebody. That's part of your driving record, even though they may find you not at fault. So we're almost to the point where we've got enough people to get going. So not a lot of free scheduled drive times. I think tomorrow I have one. So let me just take a look real quick, and I'll of course put it up. Yeah, I only have one opening tomorrow, but I'll tell you at the end of tonight's class what that is, so you're gonna have to stick around. Thursday I've got a couple, maybe one, and then Friday pretty much is wide open. Oh, that's the other thing, since we've got a good amount of you here. Tomorrow, make sure that you do your chapter test for sharing the road, chapter 11 tonight. Read chapter 11 in the textbook. Make sure that you've got your homework into me on these chapters, and I need to collect textbooks tomorrow because I have the new class coming Thursday, Friday at the end of school to pick up the textbooks for next week, because you're not going to need the textbook for next week. So I will be, let me take a look at my calendar here. I will be at the school tomorrow when you get out around 12:30. So come to the lobby with a textbook. If you have outstanding homework, you're going to have to do it by reading information online. I can send you missed homework textbook readings by email or by text messages, but I need the textbook tomorrow, or actually tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow would be better. So do chapter 11 tonight after we're done with the worksheet that I'm going to give you. And then we'll finish up tomorrow's class and a short class on Thursday with material. And just study your notes. That's the main thing for the final. And then you should be all set. So it looks like we got a good majority of people here. So I will close out of the music. I will find my PowerPoint. There we go. We basically left off talking about driving in winter weather, and we covered ice, sleet, and snow. We know that ice is the worst, sleet, then snow, and snow has dry snow, wet snow. And we talked about the speed that should be traveled. We talked about how using vehicles in front of you as a guide to give you some idea if they're having a hard time handling what looks like to be they're going 30, 35, then maybe I'm going to have to drop down to 25, a little bit slower than what they're driving. And we talked about different techniques and things that you should put into practice for driving in snow. So we got a couple more type of weather situations that we should be familiar with. This one is not so much a traction problem. So in your notes, fog is a bad weather condition that you will have to drive in. It is strictly visibility. It has nothing to do with traction. The problem with driving in fog is people do not drive slow enough to handle what they can see. So they're driving beyond their vision. They're driving beyond what they're capable of getting a clear picture of and being able to make a determination of when to brake and where to position their car on the road. So let's talk about, the observation form. I do have to send that out to people too. If you've been driving with me, I've handed it out to a few people, but make sure I'll put that on Facebook tonight too. So I've got a worksheet. I'll put the observation, and then if worse comes to worse, I can always text you a copy. Oh, let's go back. Let me show you the video on fog.
Fog is considered the most dangerous of all driving hazards. The best advice for driving in fog is don't. It's simply hard to see what's around you. If you must drive, then slow down and turn on your low beam headlights. The low beams help you to see and help others to see you. Driving instructor Zandrea Baldwin emphasizes to use low beams, not high beams.
If you have your high beams on, the glare is going to come back toward you from the fog. The fog is pretty much like a light, and if your light is shining against the fog, it's going to glare back into your windshield, and it could actually cause temporary blindness.
Because of the reduced visibility, it's vitally important to slow down and stay slowed down. Also, use the right edge of the road as a guide rather than the center line. This can help you to avoid running into oncoming traffic or from becoming distracted by oncoming headlights. And don't be too proud to ask for help.
Get your passengers involved. Have the passengers help you out, checking blind spots and things of that nature for you.
If the fog gets really thick, signal and pull off the road to a protected area. Then wait for the fog to let up. While pulled over, turn on your emergency flashers to make your car more visible to others. A final note, whatever you do, don't stop in the middle of the roadway, no matter how thick the fog is. That almost guarantees that someone will hit you from behind. Again, it's best not to drive in the fog at all. If you have to, stay alert. I'm Katina McHenry.
Okay, I do see, Annika, that it is lagging. Like I said, we're just going to have to try to deal with it the best we can. I don't think I have any extremely long videos tonight, so it shouldn't be hopefully too bad. But if worse comes to worse, you're just going to have to kind of backload the live stream and watch it after it's downloaded onto your device. So let's kind of go step by step of handling fog. First thing you want to remember is, as we said, it's a visibility problem. So you have to go slower than you normally drive. You cannot be going the same speed if it was clear out. Headlights are not for you to see the road. Remember, driving in fog, well, at night, of course, you do need it on if you're driving at nighttime where it's getting foggy. But during the day, the headlights aren't for you to see the road. It's for people to see you cutting through the fog. And you should always position yourself right of center. You should be overlooking to the right edge of the roadway towards that white, what they call fog line. Of course, it's a white line. So that's why you're going to be positioned off to the right. When you see vehicles coming up from behind them, or you're having vehicles coming towards you, then you're going to probably still slow your speed down until you get a good sense of where they're at. Be ready for quick stops. Keep within the vision that you can see. And then if it's extremely heavy fog, I mean really heavy, pull over, use your emergency flashers, and wait till fog lifts. Now, fog has a tendency to move, meaning that whenever you're near bodies of water, so we're talking rivers, creeks, marshes, bogs, oceans, lakes. When there's a drop in temperature, you're going to probably get some type of fog. So as temperature rises or lowers, it's going to get either worse or better. When there's a big discrepancy, that's when it's going to probably be at its most severe. Here's an article that I found that I thought would be kind of interesting for you to see. This is a pileup off the coast of California. And if you take a look at the top right corner, it says that 194 vehicles were involved. And they were only traveling about 25 to 35 miles per hour, but they could only see around 50 feet. Now, in the old manual, it gave you a stopping distance chart, basically what you would travel. If you're going around 30 miles per hour, your car basically needs 60 to 75 feet to stop. So if you're looking at only 50 feet of vision and you need 60 feet, 65 feet to stop, there's 15 feet that's not accounted for. And that's where the people in front of you are driving. And this is why there's such a pileup. Now, it doesn't seem like you're traveling fast at 25 or 35 miles per hour. And that's the dilemma that we face. We think our reaction time can make up for poor visibility, but it really, really can't. And can you imagine trying to pull all these vehicles away? We've got a fire truck in the picture. I'm sure there's multiple tow trucks that are coming. You're going to be stuck in traffic there probably all morning long. 194 vehicles, you're not going anywhere. You're not getting to work on time. So here's a hint. Here's a tip for you, and you won't find it in the textbook. You will not find this in the manual. Whenever weather is extreme, whether it be snow, whether it be fog, whether it be rain, and there's a situation on a highway, the best lane to be traveling in is the furthest to the right. Because think about it. You have an out to drive, meaning if things get really bad, cars start hitting one another, you can always go to the soft shoulder. You can always go to the breakdown lane. Now, of course, if there's a guardrail, you're kind of limited, but you're more apt to be able to get off the highway here if you're in the right lane, as long as that the pileup didn't take up the whole road. So that's the encouraging thing. If you always stay to the right, you could probably come away with no damage at all. Okay, there are 3 types of weather that they talk about in the textbook that we're going to go over right now. And these are situations that we may not encounter here in New England that often, although we do have high winds every once in a while. High winds are going to be more of a problem for anything that has a high center of gravity. So the video that I show you is based on tractor trailers that probably aren't carrying a full load. They're basically empty. And even though they look massive, the box that they're carrying is made out of aluminum, and it is extremely light. Now, the bed of the tractor trailer is made out of steel and heavy, but even with high winds, it will tip over one of these large vehicles. Let's take a look at what it looks like at high wind.
Wat nou partijtje? Is zo te zeer meer.
Oh no, oh no.
So, a word to the wise: when it's extremely high wind situations, do not drive next to a large tractor trailer, okay? Because you can see what will probably happen. Now, also notice that most of these situations were wide open areas, like there aren't many trees to buffer the wind, to redirect the wind. So we're talking about bridges and probably flatlands in the middle part of America, you know, these long plains of where they grow corn and, you know, soybeans and things like that. So pretty straight, flat areas. All right, the next type of weather that we have to be concerned about is sand. And because of high wind, especially out over in the West Coast, where it's very dry and the wind can pick up, that it is going to create like a dust bowl. And what you will see from this video, and I believe this is under a 2-minute video, is right now it just looks like maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon. By the end of this 2-minute video, take a look at how dark it really gets. So remember, when visibility is down, you want your headlights on, not so much for people to see, not for you to see the road, but for people to see you. So let's take a look at driving in a sandstorm. Notice how it's almost like you're driving at night now. Look how dark it's actually has gotten. So you can basically see, I'm going to guess this is probably like 150, 180 feet that you can see in front of you, relatively clear. I believe this was out in like Arizona. I think this was out on the West Coast. Now, the next type of weather that we have to be concerned about is hail. And I was driving with Bradley tonight, and I thought for sure that Bradley was going to get poured upon. Now, when I drove from Durham back to Rochester, I did encounter some rain, but I did not encounter hail. Now, hail usually happens when there is a rapid decrease in temperature. So when you're dealing with hot temperatures like we're having right now, and all of a sudden it just downpours because it's coming so heavy so quickly and the temperature's dropping, it's going to formulate large balls of hail. And in some instances, it can be about the size of a golf ball or more. And what I want you to write down in your notes, and I was telling this to Bradley as he was getting ready to drive tonight, if it starts to hail, we've got to look for a tree to go under. Now, if you're near a bridge, that's the best. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better thing to go under an underpass or to go to a gas station that has a cover like when you're filling up with gas. But most of the time, you can't find a place for protection for your vehicle. A tree will probably give you the best. But then again, you can just see by the snapshot picture here, we're dealing probably with Midwest. It's not an area that's heavily wooded. You can see some trees, but take a look what happens within like 10 seconds after they start their video.
Oh, and there's that beautiful wall cloud right in front of us.
So it's on the ground. You can see that it just basically has started.
Woo! We're getting close to grapefruits over here. And I got it on camera. Oh my gosh, we've got softball size hail going on.
See right now he probably should be going over to the left. Even it means getting off the road.
That just happened.
How are you able to get out of it?
We don't just keep driving.
And remember, this is just going to get
all
worse.
We can do. I have glass all over me.
Don't move. Don't move.
If I'm gonna. Oh my gosh. Yep. Got
Now
that one
remember,
too. Can we find a place
some of
to
that
pull
glass
under?
is coming inside. It's not going to totally break through the window, but you better have some type of eye protection or something,
Oh my
because
gosh,
little
this is the biggest
dust
hell I've ever seen.
particles or
Oh, and
glass
I'm
particles
covered
are
in
going to be.
glass.
Look at, you can see it on the dashboard.
There's nothing you can do, man. Pull up beside that building.
See, he had to get
We've lost
for
our
cover a
windshield,
lot sooner than he did. So driving in hail, just be ready for it and look for cover as quickly as you can. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is rain. And rain happens all 12 months of the year. It, of course, probably doesn't happen that often in the winter, but I mean, December, January, it's been known to get in the 40s and 50s, and we're going to get rain rather than snow. So rain is something that we encounter all the time. So let's kind of go through some basics on rain, all right? It technically is more of a vision problem than a traction problem. Now, one of the terms in driver's ed that they want to push and for you to understand and know is called hydroplaning. Hydroplaning is when your tires are riding up on top of the water. Think of skimming a stone on a pond. If you've ever seen someone take a rock and get really low and parallel with the edge of the water, they will go and throw a stone as close and as parallel as they can to the water level, and the stone will enter the water, come out, go back in, come out. And depending on how flat the rock is and how hard you throw it, it can skip 3, 4, 5 times, maybe even more. Hydroplaning with your tires is almost the same thing. You're going to hit a patch of water, you're going to lift up off it, then you're going to come back down, then come back up when you hit a little bit more water. But the thing I want you to remember is that if it is indeed hydroplaning, drop your speed. If it is a traction problem, and if you are hydroplaning, it's probably because you're traveling too fast for what your tires can push the water off the roadway. The only reason why we have tread on our tires is to push water away from the tire so we can grip the roadway. If you see running water, meaning there's a ripple effect to the water, so we're not talking puddles. If you hit a large puddle, it be a temporary kind of lifting up of a tire, kind of like hydroplaning, but it's more where heavy rain and the water is just kind of like draining. That's when hydroplaning is going to probably be at its worst. Also, for the test, I want you to understand that in the summertime, and especially like right now with the heat, the pavement is so hot and warm. When oil drops off your vehicle and hits the pavement and water mixes with it, it really creates a slippery surface. So what I want you to realize, just at the beginning of any type of rain, first half hour, hour or so, until the oil can get washed away from the roadway, you may find some areas where you may skip or slide just a little bit. And I'm not talking more than maybe 10 inches to 1.5 feet or something. And it happens more like in parking spots. If you ever take a look at a parking spot and see a big black blotch in the middle of the parking spot, that's where oil has dripped off a vehicle. So if that's mixing with a little bit of water and you hit that just right when you're parking, coming in too fast, you may hit the curb of the car in front of you. Stop signs would have the same problem. You're stopped there for a while. Traffic lights, same thing. So you're going to see these patches of oil. But after a half hour, most of that residue is going to, run off off the roadway. In the fall time, just be aware that wet leaves tend to pile up. So as you're gripping the top layer of wet leaves, the bottom layer is still attached to the road, and it's almost like putting your hand on top of a pile of papers and then pushing at an angle. You're going to just push those papers, accordion style on a desk. Your tires are going to do the same thing on the roadway. It's just going to push those leaves, and you're not going to just grab and, get good traction. In some states, headlights are required when it's raining. New Hampshire is not such a state, but write this down. Massachusetts and Maine are states that require, when your wipers are being activated and in use, you need to have your headlights on. Okay, so if you're using your wipers in Maine or Massachusetts, you better have your lights on, because they're going to pull you over and give you a ticket. Always try to signal and brake well in advance so people know what you're doing. This is me. I wrote this one down because some of you are not missing some of these potholes on the road. Anything that looks different than the regular surface of the road that's a little bit darker, that's a pothole. That is something that you should try to avoid. Okay? And this is what I want you to write down. A pothole is more circular. It is more well-defined. A puddle, on the other hand, kind of looks like if you were to take an aerial view of a lake has all these little tiny bends, and it's not really like a circle. Okay? That's a puddle, and that means you enter the puddle very subtly, and you come out very gently and subtly. Potholes are very severe, and you're gonna probably ruin your alignment, and probably rack up a lot of tire problems with replacing tires. So be very careful about that. Now, whether you can see this well or not, this is actually a car that you can't see. All right. This is why it's so important for your headlights. We can see the headlights of the cars just beyond this car, but that one is somewhat hidden. So let's take a look at what to do in rain.
The weather can present traffic hazards. Take rain. It's a hazard from the moment the first drops fall. This is when rain first mixes with oil and dust on the pavement. It's very slick. This is what happens. The dirt and oil float to the top of the water. So tires ride not only on the slippery surface of water, but also directly on the even more slippery surface of oil and dirt. It's no wonder so many crashes happen just after it starts raining. Eventually, dust and oil wash away, but plenty of hazards remain. Rain, especially heavy rain, limits your ability to see. It's hard for you to see what's going on, and it's hard for other people to see you. In addition to making it difficult to see, rain keeps roads slippery. Traction becomes a critical issue, and hydroplaning, a real danger. 3 main factors cause a car or truck to hydroplane: speed, tread depth, and water depth. The faster your car or truck goes, the more traction you lose on a wet surface. The more worn your tires are, and the shallower the tread, the more likely your car is to hydroplane. Even a thin layer of water can cause your car to lose traction. But as the water gets deeper, you lose traction sooner.
It all happens in a space no bigger than the bottom of a size 9 shoe. Now picture this. It's a smooth roadway. There's moderate rain, and you're traveling at 60 miles per hour. Under these conditions, each tire has to move away about 1 gallon of water every second. All in a space no bigger than this shoe.
Each gripping element of the tread is on the ground even less time, 1/50th of a second. During this fleeting moment, the gripping element must move the water from beneath the tire and then grip the road surface. If this doesn't happen, your car may likely hydroplane.
When a car hydroplanes, the most important thing that someone needs to remember is don't panic.
First, do not brake or accelerate suddenly. Since hydroplaning is a loss of traction to the front tires, sudden braking on a front or rear wheel drive slows the front tires but locks the rear tires. This can cause a spin out. Also, sudden acceleration on a front or rear wheel drive may take the vehicle straight ahead. This could be dangerous if the vehicle is pointed toward the edge of the roadway. According to some driving experts, what you should do depends on the type of vehicle you're in. Listen for the type of vehicle you drive. A front-wheel drive with an anti-lock brake system and traction control system. Front-wheel drive without an anti-lock brake system and traction control system. A rear-wheel drive with an anti-lock brake system and traction control system. If you begin to hydroplane in one of these types of cars, then some driving experts suggest you do this. Look for open space and plan to travel in that direction. Stay lightly on the accelerator and steer gently toward the open space which you have identified. If you are in a rear-wheel drive without an anti-lock brake system and traction control system, then do this. Look for open space and plan to travel in that direction. Ease off the accelerator and steer towards the open space which you have identified. Traction control systems, by the way, have been installed in vehicles for a number of years now, but everyone may not be familiar with it. This is a system that prevents tires from spinning under acceleration. If your vehicle has a traction control system, there should be an icon indicating so on your dashboard.
Another note, it's important not to have the cruise control engaged in heavy rain due to a sudden acceleration problem. The vehicle will recognize the water buildup as a slowdown and ask for more power. This need for more power may shift, causing the vehicle to shift to a lower gear and build more water under the tires. This causes a cycle of more power and more push on the front tires.
You can avoid hydroplaning by making sure the tread on your tires is thick enough and by slowing down. Here's a good rule of thumb for checking your tread. Stick a penny upside down in your tread. If Lincoln's head is hidden, then your tread is thick enough. If the tread doesn't hide Lincoln's head, then your tread is too thin and you need new tires. When it comes to speed on a wet road, slow down by about 1/3 of what you would normally drive. For example, if you normally drive 60 miles per hour on a dry highway, slow down to 40 when it's wet.
So they went over a lot of things to help you with driving in rain. I agree with most of what they said. Definitely make sure that your tires are in good working order, and having that tread depth is probably one of the most important. Dropping the speed, I think, once again, I think you've got to take a look at what's going on in front of you. As long as you got good following distance, if anything bad happens in front of you, you're able to handle it, then you should be okay. Hydroplaning usually begins around 35. It's not going to probably happen on main roads because they're well designed and we can kind of push the movement of water where we want it with drains. But back roads, that's another story. They don't maintain the roads as well, and water doesn't drain as well. So the other thing you're going to remember about hydroplaning is be careful about when you regrip the road, because whatever you're doing at the time that you regrip or you regain control of the vehicle, your car is going to do. So when you're hydroplaning, you cannot brake, accelerate, or steer. So nothing is happening, okay, because you're riding on top of the water. The minute you come off the water back onto the pavement, if you get the wheel turned a little bit, you're going to the left or to the right, depending on which way you've turned. If you're on the brake pedal, the minute you get onto the pavement, you are braking hard now. If you're accelerating, you're going to go faster. So try to just let go of the pedals. Try to keep your hand steering the car where you want it to go once you come out of the hydroplane, and you should be all set. Tips, we've kind of covered most of this stuff right here, so I'm not going to go over that. I know it's not bad weather, but it is a condition that we should be familiar with. And this is why the state requires you to get 10 hours of driving at night before you can get tested for your license. And I know I'm looking out the window right now. It is still light out, so this is not considered nighttime right now. So for you to get your nighttime driving, it's going to probably have to be closer to 8:30 than it is 8 o'clock. So try to get those hours in. And some of you should be working frantically to get those 40 hours done with your parents, because that's going to be what holds you up from getting your license. Because I can sign off when you finish everything that I want you to do. I can sign you off on completing driver's ed. But unless your parents sign off on that 40-hour log, then you're not going to go and get tested for your license. So let's talk about nighttime driving. There are basically 3 categories of people that we have to be concerned about out on the road at night. And this is the elderly. This is the young person that likes to drive faster than what he can see with his headlights. And then, of course, we've got to be concerned about alcohol and drugged drivers, because they're more prevalent out on the road at night than they are during the day. Not that we don't see them there, but they do more damage at night than they do during the day. So what can we do to be better behind the wheel at night? What are some of the things that we can do? First of all, make sure that your eyes are in great shape, meaning if you need glasses, wear glasses. If your eyes are bad, get glasses. Realize that you can't see as well at night, so you've got to go a little bit slower. And the term overdriving your headlights just basically means you can't stop with, if you're driving too fast, you can't stop within what you see. And this is another reason why roadkill is so, it happens so often at night, because as an animal wanders into your headlight area, which will probably freeze the animal for a moment, you don't have enough time to move the vehicle to the right or to the left a little bit. It's very difficult to try to miss an animal late at night because you're probably tired too. The animal's being frozen. So my suggestion is to go slow and move to the right and hope and wish for the best. You never want to go over the center line unless it's something huge like a moose, a deer, and you know there's no cars coming towards you, but be very, very careful. Your high beam shine are about 350 feet. Your low beam shine about 100. This you do need to know for the final, so underline this. The state requires you to have your headlights on a half hour before sunset to a half hour before sunrise. Think about that, a half hour after the sunset. So right now, people should have their headlights on. If you look out the window where you live, it is still relatively light, so you should be able to maneuver your vehicle well. But the sun set probably 15, 20 minutes ago, maybe a half hour ago. So the lights should be on. It's not total darkness. A lot of people are looking for dusk and dawn. The state doesn't use those two terms. So on any type of test, they're going to use sunset and sunrise. So you're having your lights on from the time it's dark at night till it's light in the morning. And the state will try to screw up your possibility of answers. Like they will say, you should have your headlights on 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. So they'll change the time. Or they'll say a half hour before sunset to a half hour after sunrise. So here they moved two of the words. So you kind of need to memorize this. So let's take a look at driving at night.
From sunrise to sunset, drivers have a huge advantage in the sun. Although it's easy to take for granted, the sun makes it immensely easier for us to see.
Once darkness falls, driving becomes a whole new ballgame. There's no doubt about it. Driving is a lot dicier after the sun goes down.
Driving at night does present a whole new set of circumstances for any driver, young driver or an older driver.
Darkness itself is a hazard. Even people with the best of vision cannot see as well at night. To begin with, your field of vision is less. You actually see a smaller amount of space. Objects are not as sharp, you can't perceive dips and rises as well, and you have a harder time distinguishing colors.
A person with excellent vision still needs to remember to slow down and be aware of all the hazards that could present itself at night.
You can only see as far ahead as your headlights shine. That makes it harder to see pedestrians, cyclists, animals, obstacles in the road. So go slowly enough so that you can stop within the distance lighted by your headlights. If it's safe, use your high beams, especially on open highways. But always know when to change to low beams. If you approach another car from behind, or if you meet an oncoming car, then switch to low beams. High beams blind other drivers and increase the likelihood of a crash. To avoid being blinded, don't look directly at oncoming headlights. Instead, look to the right edge of your lane and watch the oncoming car out of the corner of your eye.
A couple of other brief points. Never drive with just your parking lights on. Parking lights are designed for parking. They're not a substitute for headlights. And keep your windshield and your headlights clean. They can get real dirty real quick.
It's easy enough to do. I give them a quick wipe when I'm at the gas station. It helps reduce glare, it helps the lights to shine brighter, and in general, it helps you to see much better at night. This is Jim Angelo.
If you follow those tips, that's going to really basically help you a lot. The biggest problem I find with nighttime driving is glare. It's getting blinded by the headlights that are coming towards you. You can get blinded by the people that are coming up behind you, but what you could do is take your rearview mirror, and there's a little flap underneath your rearview mirror, and if you lift up on that, it takes the reflection of the headlights behind you and it puts the reflection on the top of your vehicle. Your side mirrors can get tipped out a little bit further so you don't get blinded by the cars coming up from the left or to the right. So we can kind of deal with the person behind us with high beams on coming up behind us. It's the person coming towards us that we have no mechanism to make that any better, except maybe dim our lights to let them know, hey, buddy, you've got your high beams on. You know, you're blinding me. I can't see. So shift your eyes to the right side of the road, and that will take the focus away from the headlights. But the biggest problem I find driving at night for most people, it's not so much the headlights, it is being tired. You know, everybody needs sleep, and your body basically has a routine that it's used to. So when you're driving, and write this down in your notes, you're going to be challenged as a driver when you're out at night driving about a half hour after your normal bedtime. So let me give you an example. If I go to bed, let's say at 11 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and I'm out on a Friday night, and it's 11:30, 12 o'clock, my body thinks it should be asleep. So it is trying its best to stay awake for me in order for me to get home. You got to be careful if you've got a long drive. Anything more than 15 minutes to a half hour, you're going to start getting the yawns. You're going to start maybe kind of dozing. And I always tell people, if I had you in class, and I wish that I could see you right now, I know it's hot. I know it's hard to pay attention. But when you're in a classroom and you got a teacher trying to teach you and you think they're kind of boring or they got a monotone voice, it's very easy. Or maybe I see people in church do this a lot. They start nodding off. You can see the head starting to tip, the eyes close for a second, and then their head pops back up. Let me get out of here so you can see me. The thing that you got to remember is that every time that you close your eyes, the next time that you do it, it will probably be slightly longer. And like when I said, when you're getting tired driving, your head will dip and then it will kick up. It will dip a little bit and then it will kick up. But each time you're fighting it, it's only going to get worse. You've got to find a place to pull over. You need some sleep. You've got to find a way to deal with the fatigue. So what I want you to write down is it's really bad between midnight and 6 in the morning and mid-afternoon. I mean, most of you guys probably stay up probably a lot later than I do. I mean, 10:30, 11, that's normal for me because I try to get up a little bit before 6 o'clock. But for most of you, if given the chance, like on a Saturday or a Sunday, you know, you're staying up till 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning and not getting up until noontime the next day. But you got to remember, if you're out that late at night, you're still going to not only be fighting fatigue, but there are going to be people that are facing you on the roadway that are fighting fatigue. And that could be a problem. Get caffeine, put sugar in your body, get out of the car, walk around. There are different ways that you can fight fatigue, but the best thing is sleep. The best thing is to get if you're going long distance, like if you're driving to Florida, switch drivers. Get someone that's already rested, someone that can take over the next leg of the drive. Try to rotate drivers every 4 or 5 hours. That's a good haul, 4 or 5 hours to drive. I hate to admit it, but when I was taking my family to Florida when they were in high school, so this has got to be 8 to 10 years ago, I left. I can't remember what time I left Rochester, but I drove straight to Virginia. That was when I stop driving and let someone else drive. It was a long haul. It was probably probably 14 hours, 15 hours. It was long. So got to be careful about those long hours, especially at night. So let's take a look at what fatigue looks like.
Back at 7:44 this morning on Today investigates a serious hazard facing young drivers that is often overlooked. NBC's senior investigative correspondent Lisa Myers is in Bethesda, Maryland with details. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Meredith. We're talking about driving while tired. We've all done it, but experts say it's particularly dangerous for teens. Fatigue is a factor in at least 100,000 crashes every year, and most of those involve young drivers who get behind the wheel when they're drowsy and never make it home.
I sit and I replay that night over and over and over again, and I thought, I'm just so close to home. I can make it.
That night, Rusty Burris was 18 years old with a bright future. But driving home from his girlfriend's house, his life changed forever.
I knew I was tired, but I didn't really feel that I was that tired. And driving home, I got just a mile from home and fell asleep at the wheel.
In seconds, Rusty's car drifted off this country road and rolled over. The impact crushed his roof and his spine. Rusty would never walk again.
I've fallen asleep and crashed my car one time, and that's all it took.
Experts say every day, millions of teens are dangerously tired when they get behind the wheel. More than a third of teens say they drive drowsy on a regular basis, and more than half of all fatigue-related crashes involve drivers under 25.
It's a huge problem, and it's probably bigger now than it was in the past.
Tom Balkin is president of the National Sleep Foundation. He says adolescents go through changes in their circadian rhythms that make it nearly impossible for them to fall asleep before 11 p.m. Combine that with early morning classes, after-school jobs, and late-night socializing, and it's easy to see why teens are chronically sleep-deprived.
The average college student needs about 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep. Virtually none of them get that. In fact, they average 6 hours of sleep per night.
So how can fatigue affect their driving?
Today's show, how may I help you?
To find out, we set up an unscientific experiment with 3 Today Show interns, Patrick, Meredith, and Brian, all college students who habitually drive after not much sleep.
Last summer, I was driving tired almost every day.
When it's final season, there's no sleep. That's when the drowsy driving starts to kick in.
For our experiment, we kept our kids up for an entire night, no naps or caffeine. Experts told us that would simulate the level of fatigue students typically suffer after a week of insufficient sleep.
You don't want to hit a cone.
Then we brought them here to the Skip Barber Driving School in Connecticut, where with safety instructors by their side, we put them through 2 road tests, a tight, twisty loop, and an emergency lane change.
We're testing today their ability to instantaneously react to an unexpected situation.
Hitting any cones would be the equivalent of a crash in the real world. The day before, all 3 had driven these courses wide awake and aced them.
I haven't hit any cones, and I think it's not that hard.
I feel pretty confident. Once you got the hang of it, it wasn't that bad.
But watch the difference when they're drowsy. Our kids swerve wildly through turns, hitting cone after cone after cone.
If that had been a real-world situation, he would have had a pretty violent crash.
Inside the car, you'd never know it. Even as they crash, our drowsy students remain slack-jawed and dazed. Patrick clearly is giddy. He almost seems drunk.
In many ways, driving drowsy is very much like driving drunk.
We showed the video to Tom Balkin, our sleep expert. He says drowsiness, like alcohol, can severely impair a driver's reflexes, judgment, and awareness. Should parents be as worried about kids driving when they're too tired as they are about them texting while driving or driving drunk?
Absolutely.
Especially, he says, on long, boring roads like the one where Rusty crashed. So we also tested our kids on this monotonous 2-mile track, each driving it for half an hour.
At first I thought I did okay. I thought I was in control.
but their dead stares tell a different story. Balkan says these are signs of a dangerous condition called microsleeps, where your eyes stay open, but your brain is falling asleep.
And this is the kind of situation where anything unexpected actually could throw them.
Like these surprise cones. We put them up on our kids' final lap to simulate a stopped car or a person unexpectedly in their path. Before the test, we made sure an alert driver could easily stop in time. But watch our drowsy kids. Whoa! They're so disoriented, they barely hit the brakes.
Whoa, okay, that was fun. I just killed somebody, didn't I?
Imagine if that cone had been someone's pet or child.
After I sat there for a minute and realized what I did, that's a tough pill to swallow.
That was an eye-opener because that thing that you never know is going to happen that will just come out of nowhere. That's what you have to be prepared for. And if you're tired, you might not be.
A realization that came too late for Rusty Burris.
When you're tired, stop. Don't push it. Because even though you've only got a mile left, you could be throwing your entire life away trying to drive one more mile.
Now, sleep experts say parents should treat drowsy driving just like drunk driving. Tell your kid if he's tired to call you. You'll come pick him up. Or if he gets tired on a long drive, tell him to pull off the road, get some caffeine, and take a 20-minute nap. That should help revive him. Meredith?
All right, Lisa.
Okay, the thing I want you to take away from that video, and like I said, a half hour of driving. Notice that they were driving fine. They showed pictures of them with their eyes open driving for a half hour. They didn't go off the edge of the road. They were maintaining their speed and their position. It wasn't until they needed their reflexes, till they needed to be at their best in order to stop. So, like they said, a pedestrian, it could have been a traffic light that changed. And the other thing, too, is you're not picking up your signs. Now, they were on a track, so they didn't have to pick up things that were moving and changing. They just gave them the pop-up pedestrian at the top of a hill. But notice that every single one of them, all three of them, failed that test. So this is something that will happen. And that's the biggest problem that we have about nighttime driving. We think we're better than we are. Just know in your notes, and they mentioned this, that fatigue driving gives the police officer that's watching someone drive, someone that's very tired, you almost look like a drunk driver. So just write in your notes that fatigue driving looks like drunk driving. So you have nothing to worry about. You haven't had anything to drink, but they're going to probably ask you questions like, where have you been? Have you had anything to drink? If you're not staying in your lane, overshooting your stop lines, running a stop sign or traffic light, things like that. And this was just an article explaining that the more that you drive, the more you take on a resemblance of a drunk driver. That was the video that we just watched. I'm not going to show that because let's get right into insurance because we got a little bit to get through tonight with insurance. So that's for bad weather. The next thing that I want to kind of talk about is that at some point in your driving life, someone's going to hit you or you're going to hit somebody, and we're not going to necessarily, say who's at fault, but there's going to be two cars hitting one another. It's not a lot of times up to you to determine that. Sometimes it's the courts, sometimes it's the insurance company, but you know that whenever something bad happens, everybody tries to make themselves look better than they really are. So take a circle, and if you were to start to take out a slice of it, what they will find, let's say that one person's 80% at fault and the other person's 20% at fault. So a lot of times with a car crash, they're going to take a look at, are there percentages that need to be taken into account? But let's just try to not get into a crash, right? That's really what we're here for. We're trying to train you to be a safe and responsible driver. So let's talk about what are defensive skills. Defensive skills is where you're trying to always stay away from problems. So the first thing here is that if every driver always obeyed traffic rules, always drove sensibly, driving would be simpler and safer. Makes sense. Of course it does. So this is where we get into trouble. Once you get a license and you feel confident with your driving, especially if you're driving in an area that you're familiar with, we don't look for mistakes of other people. We don't look for our signs. We don't look for our traffic lights. We think we're a good driver. I'm only going home. It's a 10-minute drive. Why do I have to be looking for where people are positioned on the road or how fast they're going or why is that pedestrian starting to run out in front of me? And people start just doing what they want to do. The last part is really what separates the good drivers from the bad drivers. And these are people that are willing to change their speed, their position, to give up right of way, to make the situation better. That's just part of being a defensive driver. And that's what I hope you come away with after taking the class. So at times when you know that you're going to be hit, you got to be ready for the crash. So if you're going to get hit from behind, this is someone that's going too fast, following too closely. Be ready to apply your brakes so you don't get pushed into another vehicle. Brace yourself because you're going to go forward. So hold yourself firm with the steering wheel and press your back up against the back of your seat. We talked about the dead pedal. You're going to be pushing your left foot up against that dead pedal. So you're getting ready for that initial, thrust of being pushed forward because you can see you're going to get hit. And by the way, we've been hit from behind a few times in the driver's ed vehicle. Nothing that would cause us to get the car repaired, but did leave a couple marks. And it takes you by surprise. And make sure that your head is up against the headrest. Hit from the side, we call that T-boned. It usually happens at intersections. It happens in parking lots where people are backing out and not paying attention. It can happen on one-way streets in downtowns where there's angle parking and people are backing out of parking spots and they come out too quickly or they don't look for you. So be aware that depending on where you're going to get hit, you're going to get pushed the opposite direction. So if you're going to get hit from the side, as long as it's not where you're seated on the left side. Oh, geez, I just hit the wrong button. I went right. Really, I hit the button way too quick. If you get hit from the right side of your car, you're going to get pushed into oncoming traffic if it's two-way traffic. That's probably the most dangerous. But no one wants to get hit on their side, on the left side of the vehicle. But as long as it's up near the, the front left tire or the back left tire, it's not going to be the worst. But it will spin you around, and it's going to push you over to the right side of the road usually. The next is by far the worst. So you can write this down. If you're going to get hit from the front, a head-on collision is by far the worst because you've got to take the speed of your vehicle and add it to the speed of the car that's hitting you. So let's do a simple in-town head-on collision. You're going 30 downtown. There's a car that's coming towards you, 30, 35 coming. So that's like hitting a tree at 60, 65 miles per hour. That's pretty violent. So what you want to do is you want to bring your speed down as quickly as possible. Okay, forget about the hands and stuff like that. I don't even think that's in the new manual anymore. I think they've taken that out. But you do want to hit your brakes as hard as you possibly can. You want to lower your speed. So rather than being hit at 30, if you can get your speed down to around 15 or 10, and they're braking to 15 or 10, it's like getting hit at 30 rather than 60, 65. So you're bringing it down by half. And then you're probably both walking away without major injuries. But you get hit at 60 miles per hour, they're going to probably take you to the hospital. That's pretty, we're not talking seriously, but we're talking, concussion, not feeling too well, being very, very sore. And hopefully you're in your seatbelt. Okay, so let's talk about being involved in a crash. So let's kind of get to the nitty gritty here. The first thing that I want you to write down, and it's in bold type here, if you remember nothing else in the next half hour, I want you to understand that I want you to be a responsible person once you get your driver's license. Anytime you try to get away from police or get away from responsibility, you are only digging yourself a hole. You're going to make the situation worse. Okay? There isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't watch the morning news when I have my cup of coffee at breakfast where there is some type of crash in Massachusetts with a vehicle. A lot of times it's hit and run. People did not want to be responsible. Then 3-4 days after the crash, we get reports they have found the person that drove away. They're going to have more substantial license revocation and fines and penalties. It's going to be a lot worse. Now, this is where I kind of differ than what the manual says, so I'm going to give you both here. So it says if you can move your vehicle off the road, do so that you don't block traffic. What they're trying to say here is that you do not want to get hit again. But what I want you to write down in your notes, and I want you to understand, is that before you move your vehicle, okay, we don't want other people to hit you, so make sure no one, we can kind of direct traffic away from where the crash has happened. What I want you to write down in your notes is that I want you to take a picture of all four sides of the vehicle. So what I want you to do is to take out your phone, okay, and I want you to take a picture from the front, left, rear, right, okay? So what I want you to do right now with your phone, okay, I want you to text me the statement, in the event of a crash. So in a crash, before I move the vehicle, you don't have to write all of it, just say, take a picture of all four sides of the vehicle from a distance too. You don't want to get up super close. You want to see the tires touching the ground. You want to see it in relationship to telephone poles and lines and signs. What you're trying to do is recreate where the cars finally were when they finally came to a rest. When people move their vehicle and the police show up, it is very difficult for the police to know who caused what, because you're pointing your finger to them saying they crossed the center line, they hit me. And they're pointing at you saying, no, they crossed the center line and they hit me. So you got two different stories. So who's right? So unless there's a camera around, we don't know what basically happened. But this is called recreate the crash scene. So by taking a picture in relationship to skid marks and lines and guardrails, you're going to have a better idea of who caused the crash or who was more responsible. So that's really important. Now, remember I said you're only doing this if you're not going to get hit. If you're just over a hill or around a corner, probably move your vehicle because it's a matter of life and death. All right? Good. People are texting me, take a picture from all four sides. Stay within your training when it comes to first aid. Don't move people because you could make things worse. Anybody that's outside of the vehicle, try to get the names and addresses. People involved in the crash, you should try to get their names too, because you're filling out an accident report, and that's going to be part of what you're going to be doing for your homework tonight when we're done, is that when you go, when you call the police and you have to file with your insurance company, they're going to probably want to see an accident report. They call it an accident report. I like the word crash better than accident, but this is what you're writing down, and this is what I want you to, and let me just show you. I don't know if I can throw this on. Let's see if this comes up. There we go. I'll put it right there. This is what you're recording of the other driver. You're recording the other driver's name, address, driver's license number, state of issue, make of a vehicle, model and year of a vehicle, damage to the vehicle, insurance company name, and name of any passengers. All right? So the accident report, as you see on your screen right now, I am going to post this on the Facebook page. And this is what you're going to have to fill out the best that you possibly can. The only section that I don't want you to fill out is section C right here, where it does name the name of the occupants. We really don't have to get into that per se, but it's only 2 pages. Here's the other page. Let's see if this comes up better. There's the other page. So here's the other page where it's got all your information. It's information of your vehicle. So I'm going to want you to write down everything except the license number, plate number. I don't want your real plate number, so make that up. But I do want, because I have your address, so I want factual information about you. But when you have to fill out the right side, the other vehicle, I want you to make it up. So make up another street in Durham, Lee, wherever you live, somewhere close by. Make up a name of a friend that you have, and just make up the type of car that they had. But I want you to do section D, E, and F. Okay, this is the back part. This is really easy to fill out. F is super easy. The bottom left part of F just basically deals with your description of what happened. You can see right above that box, it gives you where you hit from the rear. Was the car passing you? Was it on a left-hand turn? So you could just check a box. And over on the right-hand side, it also gives you boxes to put in information. So you're not really doing a whole lot of writing. But the key part for you is going to be section E, where I want you to truthfully, okay, I really do want to know that you have an insurance company. You do not have to, if you can give me the name of the agent, that's fine. But I don't need the policy number. All I want you to do, write this in, and I'll mention it again at the very end of tonight's class. But rather than policy number, I want you to get the phone number that you're going to have to use to make a claim. All right. And then over on E, it says the estimated property damage. That's going to be something that probably the adjuster is going to do for you from the insurance company. And then just put down any property that was damaged other than the car that hit you. So you're going to write down, we went over the edge of the road and we took down somebody's fence and mailbox. So it's two sides. This is the front side. And I just took down the second part of that. And it's pretty easy to fill out. It shouldn't take you probably more than 15 minutes. Don't tell me. Did I lose? Oh. Hold on. I lost my PowerPoint. I wonder why my face was here. All right, hold on. Just hold on a second. I am going to have to get there we go. Now I'm back in business. I don't know why I couldn't get back to my PowerPoint. Okay, give the driver the same information that you're collecting. So you're going to basically give them a copy of this report. And by the way, if the police help you out and they fill it out, then technically you don't have to do this. They'll do it for you. We kind of went through all this stuff. The bottom part is kind of important, that after crash, I probably would go see a doctor because you never know when you could have neck issues, back issues, because adrenaline is still flowing and you may just be what you think is sore, but tomorrow you might not even be able to move. So they could probably give you a muscle relaxant, or the doctor may take some x-rays just to make sure that there's nothing broken or sprained and things like that. Plus, if you ever go to court and you try to collect on medical bills, they're kind of, they look at people that go 3-4 days after a crash like, yeah, did it really happen during the crash, or did it happen when you were at work or at school 3 days later? And you're just trying to make me pay for it. So going the day of the crash is, really kind of important. Give the other, if you hit a parked car, you're supposed to leave a note. This is not the kind of note that you want to leave. You do not want to write down on a piece of paper, I accidentally hit your vehicle. Someone saw me, so I'm pretending to do the right thing, and write down the details. You're supposed to give your name, your phone number, and that you give me a call tonight and we'll rectify the problem. I'm sorry, I didn't see your car that close, and when I pulled in, I scraped it. Things happen. A lot of times people are more, and by the way, remember, in parking lots, if you do not write or leave a note, there's probably some type of a camera that's that sees what you're doing. As I said, now this is going to be on the final. You need to know this. In New Hampshire, the law requires that if someone is injured or killed, or if there's property damage, if the damage is over $1,000, you have to file a DMV report within 15 days. So no, $1,000 if you think the damage is above that, and most damages nowadays will be above that. You have to file a report to the DMV within 15 days. And like I said, if the officer investigates, then you're all set. Park well off the road. Let me see. I think I skipped something. Let's see if I go back here a little bit. I want to see if no. Let me go through. Make sure your car can be seen for at least a distance of 200 feet in both directions. So put a flare in front or behind the vehicle. use emergency flashes. Make sure you've called the police, because once you call 911, everybody comes. So now it's more than, it's really not calling the police, it's calling 911. If someone is trapped in the vehicle, you smell smoke, or you see sparks or whatever, and there's a chance that the car could ignite, then you're going to try to free the person, because you don't want them to get caught in a car with fire. Now, this looks familiar to most of you. You know that when I drive with you and we leave Oyster River and we go down to the four-way intersection and take a left to come into downtown Durham, we're on Madbury Road. This is right near Rise and Shine coffee shop. This is where the driver's ed car got hit. Between that white car and that silver car is an entrance to the plaza right there. And one Saturday morning, right around 10 o'clock, we were driving down Madbury Road, and some college student was not paying attention and came out. Now, I did not see the college student's car. It was a small car. I was looking. The student didn't see it. So we did all we could, but we still couldn't avoid the crash that was going to happen. So this is what the car looked like. That's where the car got hit. Okay, it doesn't look too bad. And by the way, let's see. We'll put this on. All your answers have to be on YouTube, all right? So everybody is going to get a clear shot at this. This is the damage to the driver's ed vehicle. Put down how much damage. How much did it cost to get that fixed? I want to see what everybody thinks how much damage is right there. Okay? So that is the main damage to the vehicle. That dent right there. Okay? So I'm going to keep on instructing, and I'll see the answers coming up in just a little bit. That's the damage to the car that hit us. You can see basically looks like it didn't even break their parking light, but the bumper up top did take quite a hit. Now, rather than fill out all that information that I told you about, what the police told us to do, and I thought this was a great idea because I was ready to write down all the information from her registration. And this is her registration, and I blacked out a lot of the information. But you can see that it's a Toyota Corolla, which is a relatively small car, 2004. Just take a picture of it. And this gives you all the information that you need that you're going to have to fill out later. So rather than be by the side of the road for 15, 20 minutes, we basically exchanged this information in 5. Once the police came, within 5 minutes, we were on our way. We both could drive our vehicles. So that was what I took a picture of. I took a picture of her registration. She took a picture of mine. And then we both took pictures of our license. So there is the girl that hit me. It was kind of funny because the minute she got out of the car and she said she was sorry and she said she didn't see me, of course, I wasn't too happy with her because she should have inched out and done her safety stops, but she didn't do it. But she got on the phone and she called her father. And when I heard the conversation, I had to kind of chuckle. And she says, "Dad, I hate to call you and tell you this, but I've been involved in another accident." And I'm thinking, okay, this girl, poor girl, is not probably the best of drivers. If she's having multiple drivers, multiple crashes, she's got some real issues. So that was the easiest way to do it. So in case of a fire, try to get away from the vehicle. I do not recommend trying to put it out. The car's probably going to be at loss anyways. Electrical wires, be very, very careful. Only in life or death situations, probably pull somebody from the vehicle, because remember, the minute you step out of your vehicle, if you've got wires on your car, you're going to get electrocuted. It's better for you to stay in the vehicle until they tell you to get out of the vehicle. So only in life or death. And when you do get out of the vehicle, you've got to jump clear of the vehicle with both feet. Okay, because right now, if you're sitting in a seat, I'm standing up teaching. But if you're in a car, think about it. If you're in a car and you open up the door, what do you do with your left foot? You open the door and your left foot goes out and you plant it on the ground. Your right foot is still inside the car. At that point, if you've got electrical wire on your car, you become grounded. Okay, you now become grounded. You will now get electrocuted. Remember, if you hit a telephone pole and there are live wires on you, you're alive. you're not dead. Okay? It's going to stay that way. Nothing's going to change. It will only change if you leave. So wait for the power company to come, and then they'll turn off the power. Stay within the training that you have for your first aid. And remember that you will be protected by the Good Samaritan law, meaning that if you help somebody out with the kindness of your heart, it's more difficult for them to sue you. I've got answers here from most people. We got a good amount of people here that have answered this. Sam is, Ave is the highest with 2,000. Can you believe that damage to my vehicle was $3,400? $3,400 to get, basically, I think they gave me a new door and on the passenger side in the front, and then they fixed the one in the back that had a minor scrape. It took over a week. Took over a week to get my car back. It was horrible. Stay with injured people. Understand that if your help is not needed, then you should probably drive on. If you hit a dog, it's your responsibility to find the owner or to call the police and let them know that you hit an animal. And I want to speak for a moment about cats. Even though we don't have it listed here in the manual, it's because dogs are licensed in towns, cats are not. I still would stop, and if I hit a cat, I would go to at least a couple doors and see if I could find the owner, and try to find somebody. If you don't feel comfortable moving the dog or the cat, you should not leave it off to the side of the road. There is nothing worse than for a young child to get off a bus to find that somebody during the day hit their pet. Okay, so if it's a pet, be responsible, call the police, go door to door, and try to find someone that will help move that animal. Okay, I am firmly believe into that. And I'll tell you a quick story. I had a student once that told me that her friend, close friend, I didn't have her in driver's ed. She went somewhere else, and this was at a different school. But her friend killed a cat while she was driving, and it belonged to one of the high school teachers. And all they did was put the cat up on the lawn of the house where it belonged, of the house where the cat, lived. And the teacher was frantic about, what had happened, losing her cat, and that nobody was responsible. So I can't imagine, losing a pet and knowing that someone did it and wasn't, man enough or didn't man up. Yeah, that is a lot of money, Waverly, for an accident. So let's talk about insurance. We're not going to be able to do a lot. I'm going to show you a quick video on insurance. We'll discuss it a little bit tomorrow when we come back into class. New Hampshire has no mandatory insurance law, so that means once you own the vehicle, you are not required to buy insurance if you're over the age of 18. Under the age of 18, you are responsible, or your parents are responsible for you. So you're driving on your parents' goodness because they signed for your license. So if I'm going to pick on Waverly, she's the last person to make a comment here. So if Waverly hit the driver's ed vehicle, I wouldn't go after Waverly, in court. I would go after her parents. All right. So once you become 18, your parents can basically say you're out on your own. So what damages you do, you're responsible for. So this is why I'm a firm believer you should always carry some form of insurance, probably liability. So we're going to talk more about liability and the different aspects of insurance tomorrow. But I did want to show you this quick video right now. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about the worksheet and we'll have some closing remarks.
Hello, my name is Lisa LaLiberty. I'll be speaking on the basics of auto insurance. For most people, buying an automobile is their first major purchase. Actually, a new car is second only to a home as the most expensive purchase many consumers make. With vehicle prices averaging over $28,000, it's easy to see why one would want to protect that investment. Before we talk about coverage for the automobile itself, I'd like to start with what many people believe is the most important coverage of all, liability coverage. Liability coverage pays for the injuries or damage you or someone driving your car caused to other people or their property. The two liability coverages are called bodily injury liability and property damage liability. Every state has different laws dictating the minimum coverage you must carry for this. Some states require you to prove you have insurance before registering a motor vehicle, and other states use the honor system, where you only have to provide proof if you have an accident or violation. A typical state-required minimum coverage is 25, 50, 10, and I'll provide an example shortly to explain what that means. There are 4 states that do not require drivers to carry any liability coverage. Just because it's not required by law doesn't mean you don't need it. Let's say you have an accident. You're distracted momentarily and rear-end the BMW in front of you. There are 3 people in it, all of whom suffer some injury. If you're carrying liability coverage of 25, 50, 10, that means your insurance company will cover the cost of any one person's injuries, rehabilitation expenses, pain and suffering, and time lost from work up to $25,000. But they will not pay more than $50,000 for the accident, regardless of the number of people injured. This is the bodily injury portion. And your insurance company will pay up to $10,000 for the property damaged. So 3 people are injured. Let's say their injuries total $75,000. And the BMW has rear-end damage of $13,000. Your policy will pay for $50,000 for all injuries and $10,000 for the property damage. Where does the remaining $25,000 for bodily injury and $3,000 for property damage come from? Once your policy pays the maximum limits, you could be held personally responsible for the remaining amount. It's generally recommended that you carry more than the state minimum coverage to protect yourself from this financial risk. The next coverage under an automobile policy is medical payments coverage. This provision protects you and your passengers if you're hurt in a car accident, regardless of who's at fault. The coverage also extends to you and your family members if you're a passenger in someone else's car or if you're a pedestrian injured by an automobile. Medical payments coverage pays the medical bills resulting from an accident up to a per-person maximum, commonly $5,000. There are no deductibles and no waiting period under this coverage, and prescription drugs related to the injuries are covered. Consider that accident with the BMW again. Let's say that you and your passenger are both injured and taken by ambulance to the hospital. Medical payments coverage of $5,000 will cover the cost of the ambulance ride, the emergency room visit, and subsequent doctor's visits up to $5,000 per person. If your medical bills total $7,000 and your passengers total $3,000, the policy will pay $8,000 under this coverage. Some states have a medical payments coverage known as Personal Injury Protection, or PIP. This coverage may have a deductible, and it may allow you to collect for lost wages and rehabilitation expenses, 2 things that regular medical payments coverage does not cover. A third coverage provided by an automobile insurance policy is uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. This coverage is quoted similarly to bodily injury liability. Even though mandatory insurance laws exist in 48 states, nearly 15% of all accidents are caused by uninsured drivers. Uninsured motorist coverage provides protection for you and your passengers when you're injured in an accident with an uninsured motorist. It will cover your medical bills, rehabilitation expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering, things you could have claimed against the at-fault party's insurance if they had it. Underinsured motorist coverage will cover those same losses if the at-fault party's coverage is insufficient for your loss. Keep in mind, in most states, the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage applies to injury only and not for damage to your vehicle. Protection for your automobile is provided under the collision and comprehensive portions of a policy. Collision coverage applies when you have an accident involving another vehicle or an object, such as a telephone pole, a guardrail, a building, or when you overturn your vehicle. Comprehensive coverage applies in losses involving fire, theft, vandalism, broken glass, hitting an animal, flood or hail damage, or other losses not caused by collision. These coverages have a deductible the amount you must pay before the insurance company pays for damages. Common collision deductibles are $500 or $1,000, and common comprehensive deductibles are $100 or $250. If your automobile is financed, then you're required by the bank or financer to carry comprehensive and collision coverages until that loan is paid off. It's important to note, an insurance company will never pay more to fix your vehicle than the vehicle is worth. Two other coverages available through many insurance companies are towing and emergency road service and rental car reimbursement. While these coverages are optional, I always recommend them as part of my full coverage package. Automobile insurance rates are based on many factors, including where you live, your age, what you drive, how much you drive, and the coverage you carry. One way to keep your insurance costs down is to take high comprehensive and collision deductibles. As a vehicle gets older and is not financed, many people choose to drop these two coverages completely as a way to save money. Additionally, many people choose to pay for small claims out of their own pockets as a way to keep their rates down. But remember, the coverage you carry is just one of the factors contributing to the cost of insurance. There are things you can do to make sure you get the best price possible. The first is to keep your driving record clean. Your driving record is used as a predictor of future experience. Accidents and violations stay on your record for 3 years, and major violations and suspensions stay on for 5 years. Many companies now use a scoring model that combines your driving record with a variety of other information, including certain elements of your credit history and prior insurance claims to determine your cost for insurance. This means that paying bills on time could affect your insurance rate, as could the number of claims you file on your policy. Automobile insurance can be confusing, but a little knowledge can go a long way in providing you the protection you need.
Okay, that was really complicated, I know, and we're going to kind of break it down section by section so we can kind of give you a real simple explanation of each component of an insurance policy, so you have some basic understanding of how it works. And I know your parents are going to be dealing with insurance for a while, but it won't be too long. Once you're in college, maybe, or out of college, this is going to be your responsibility. And my son just graduated college, and our insurance is up next month, and I've already told him, guess what there, Junior? This is going to be your responsibility now. Okay, it's no longer going to be mom and dad on the insurance, making the insurance policy payment, and you're on your own. Okay, you're graduated now. This is your life. So at some point, your parents are going to make you do this. So just having some basic working knowledge, and I will guarantee you, what we go over tomorrow at the beginning of tomorrow's class, your parents will save some money. So we're going to go through, things to look for, what to eliminate, what to change on an insurance policy to cater it to what you actually need. Because I believe people sometimes overbuy insurance. It's funny because when I was eating dinner tonight and I was watching TV, Liberty Mutual did a commercial, and there was a guy that was selling what you think was hot dogs, but it was wet animals or wet stuffed animals or something like that. And he said that the part of the commercial is that, I do things differently. I only get the type of insurance that I really need. And that's basically what you should be doing because you don't want to waste money. So we're going to go into that tomorrow at the beginning of class. So let's kind of, wrap up what we got going right now. And let me explain a few things. I'm going to put the accident report on Facebook in the next 5 minutes. I'm also going to try to drop the the accident report, if you've got like an iPhone. People that have been texting in tonight, I think I can drop it into a text message. The observation sheet that you're supposed to have signed by your parents, because we don't have students in the back watching you drive. Part of driver's ed is observation, so we're at the very end of the program now. I probably should get that form from you. So I'm going to post that on Facebook. But if you need it and I can drop it to you in a text message, just text me and I can do that. I told you I only have one drive tomorrow. I believe at 3 o'clock tomorrow I have open. So I'm going to take a look at who is but I'm going to take a look and see who needs the hour. So I've got 3 o'clock open tomorrow, and I'll do 4 o'clock on Thursday. I have so 3 tomorrow, 4 on Thursday. I'm only going to do those 2 dates, but Saturday is wide open. I'll do a full day. Friday I've got a little bit of openings. If you've got lunch, like I said, textbooks. I'm going to be upset. I mean, I am not going to be happy. I need the textbooks tomorrow. So that's the other thing. Make sure that you do chapter 9 and 11, which is highway driving and sharing.